the cause of the explosion. We can have reasonably assumed that the picture balloon was destroyed in the shearing heat of the explosion.
Ja, that's right. Ja, his was not my fault.
Evidently, because the birdcage from the kinesis machine materialized in the sky where it had been flying. And the balloon, being filled with flammable hydrogen, instantly and explosively ignited.
Objection.
No, that's not what happened. What? It would appear that this photograph requires closer examination. Counsel for the defense, you will highlight the location of this alleged clue in the photograph for the court. Of course, my lord. You look closely. It's plain enough to see. What's shown is linked to another piece of evidence we have. In a way that leads to an unbelievable conclusion. But that heavily suggests the real reason the balloon exploded is... right here.
Take that!
The timing of this photograph can only be described as miraculous. If you look, you'll notice there's a bright white light that appears to point directly at the balloon. Most likely a ray of light caught incidentally on the film. I'm afraid I can see nothing of the sort. It looked like with a magnifying glass, my lord, it becomes clear what the nature of this bright light really is. Goodness. What is it? Undeniable some flash of light, yes. Oh, golly. Do you think it might be lightning? It couldn't have been a finer day. I believe we may be looking at fire. A ball of fire. Straight over the balloon, like an arrow! Indeed, even in my aging eyes, it would appear to be flame of some sort. I would. I use it as this flame struck the hydrogen gas that filled the balloon.
Objection!
That's absurd. The balloon would have been 60 feet above the ground at the time. No flame could possibly reach such a height.
Objection!
Actually, it's my opinion that a particular piece of evidence found at the scene reveals how this exactly happened. What evidence? If such evidence exists, Consul, then for goodness sake, present it, man. What evidence explains this mysterious streak of flame that appears to be headed directly towards the balloon?
Take that!
This was found and hidden at the foot of the small ornamental tree near the scene. But Lord, is that a crossbow? An arrow dipped in oil and set aligned could have been shot from this weapon, sending a flaming arrow straight into the hydrogen-filled balloon. Are you suggesting that a crossbow was used deliberately? Blimey, you're right! The streak of light in the photo looks just like an arrow, doesn't it? Then, the explosion of the balloon, it was... very likely the result of a flaming arrow from this crossbow igniting the hydrogen gas inside it. No! No! Order! Order! Counsel, this is extraordinary, Counsel, this is extraordinary, supposition. The aim was to cause the balloon to explode. The shooter could have used a gun, of course. However, there's an obvious reason why that would have been out of the question. The noise of discharge. Force. That's right. By using a crossbow, the projectile could be fired at the balloon silently. Well, yeah. If someone had shot a gun off in the exposition halls, it would have caused a real panic. But with the big explosion, there was a very big panic anyway, no? I don't like this. I'd be pleased to have found a plausible new explanation for all this, but something feels wrong.
Objection!
Do you understand the implications of what you're saying, my Nipponese friend? A flaming arrow did indeed hit the balloon, then obviously would have exploded. And if the birdcage appeared from the cloud of smoke that ensued... Wait a minute! What are you really saying here? I don't get it. Was the birdcage beamed up to the sky after all? Oh, what? My goodness me! Now I understand. That's what the sinking feeling is about. I think there's a good chance that the birdcage is actually concealed inside the balloon all along. What? Did I just hear that correctly, Consul? There's no going back now. The horse is bolted. Let's assume, as I said, the birdcage was hidden inside the green balloon from the start. On stage, where the experiment was started, the birdcage was in an instantaneous kinesis machine, disappeared in a cloud of smoke. At that moment, the flaming arrow was fired from the ground, causing the green balloon to explode and drawing the attention of the specters to the sky above their heads. From amid the smoke, the hidden birdcage that appeared to fall down and crash into the crystal tower. I think you'll all agree it's entirely possible that what I just described is the real truth behind the miraculous experiment carried out that day. Good grief!
Objection!
This is ludicrous. What you described as no science experiment. It's child's play. A contemptible display of stage magic. Both Mr. Slomes and Iris said the experiment was a scientific impossibility. In which case, this is the only way to explain what happened that day. And in that case, the victim's body was found inside the birdcage in the crystal tower. If the instantaneous kinesis didn't take place, how do you explain that? I may put in a word, as a man of magic myself. Such apparent discrepancies can easily be explained by some simple deception. Juror number 3? All that would be needed is a doppelganger, someone who looked very similar to the victim, Mr. Osmond. And having this other man appear on the stage in front of the show as a body double. Yes! Of course! So in fact, Mr. Osmond must have been inside the birdcage that was concealed inside the balloon right from the start.
Objection!
That balloon would have been filled with hydrogen. Anything hidden inside it would have been scattered to the four winds when it exploded. No one would have ever embarked on such a risky venture. Not necessarily. The explosive force of the balloon gas would very much depend upon the mixture ratio. Juror number 4? Flying balloons are rarely filled with pure hydrogen, but has a mixture of other gases such as helium as well. Helium on its own doesn't explode. By controlling the gas mixture ratio, the explosive force can be altered. The mixture ratio. Obviously, the victim's body would have suffered some burns that would be unavoidable. But not to such an extent as to render this whole obscene charade impossible. So everything that happened can be explained, logically and scientifically. The explosion that engulfed the stage at the start of the experiment was no accident. It was all part of an elaborate deception, to make it appear that instantaneous kinesis had occurred. Well, goodness me. We accept that this is what happened. It means the victim, Mr. Osmond, was never present on the public experimentation stage to begin with. In short, he couldn't have been killed by the defendant, who was on stage in full view the entire time. Ugh! It'd be very hard for the prosecution to counter. Our defense seeks can't credibly maintain the Professor Hairbrain as a suspect now. Hold it! Mr. Naruto, I appreciate your efforts. Thank you. Professor? But you can stop now. Just keep your mouth shut, please. Sorry? What's all this about, Mr. Hairbrain? I, Albert Hairbrain, hereby confess that it was me who stabbed Mr. Odi Osman! Yes, it was me! He was my faithful friend and partner, Andrew the Screwdriver! What are you doing? Order! Order! Bandit, explain the sudden confession.
Objection.
Professor Hairbrain, what are you talking about? It's what I've said all along. I must protect my hypothesis and my precious machine. You stand there and claim it was all a trick, all an elaborate prank, but where's your proof? No, you'd have to examine the machine if you wanted to prove it, but then it would have been all over. My beautiful hypothesis will be laid bare. I mean, the indignity of it. It's clear that you drew the plans for the experiment, but you didn't actually build it. It's quite conceivable that you were duped, Professor. You just let me... Barf! Yes. I'll collaborate. I'll do whatever you say. I swear it. So please. Ensure the Special Disposition for Scientific Equipment Act is adhered to and protect my creation. Pray forgive the discourtesy of filling my hollow chalice of this critical conjecture. Here's my learned Nipponese friend. What? In his upcoming attempt to clarify the defendant's position in light of the accuser's confession, do you intend to formally assert that the experiment was nothing more than a conjuring trick? Because the moment you do, the Special Disposition or Scientific Equipment Act that protects the professor's invention will cease to apply. The prosecution will then demand a rigorous examination of the machinery involved in order to establish the truth. However, you acknowledge the machine is genuine and instrumental in the victim's murder. Any chance of investigating will be crushed, and confidentially, with the professor's hypothesis preserved. Oh, Consul, what is your defense's official position on this matter? Well, Professor Hairbrain, my client, actually asked of me was to prove that the explosion on stage was an accident and protect the secrecy of his hypothesis. There's no way to do that without implying the professor's guilt. Do I protect my client's life by ensuring his innocence? Or do I uphold my client's request but see him condemned? Either way, I can't avoid betraying his trust. You've been silenced long enough. Isn't talking a trade, my learned friend? Or has all knowledge of English escaped your confused Nipponese mind? Mr. Naruto! There's no escape here. I have to make a choice. It's an impossible one. I have to give up on something. But what? The defense asserts that the defendant's instantaneous kinesis machine was in fact... a conjuring trick. Ugh. No, I can't say it. My client places faith in me. I just can't let him down. What must I give up on? Is not the question you have to ask yourself here. It's, what can I protect? Hello again, Mr. Naruto. It's been far too long. Susato-san! But what are you? Hiya! My first Susato takedown in 6 months. There'll be time to talk later, Mr. Naruto. But now, you must concentrate on the task at hand. Which is working out not what I have to give up on, but what I can protect. Professor Hairbrain! Oh, yes! Yesterday you told me that science is the pursuit of truth. Well, my job is to pursue the truth too. Yes, of course. And personally, I believe that you didn't stab Mr. Asaman. I think you've come to realize something yourself too, haven't you? That your experiment and the machine you built with the victim are questionable. The truth behind that is, what we must both pursue now. So, finally open your eyes. What? And as for you, Albert, can't ignore this any longer. Having heard my learned friend's assertion, don't you have something to say? But, Barrock! Lord Van Zeeks? Gosh, I never heard him speak that way before. In truth, there is one thing, something I remembered, that's of relevance. What? On the day it happened, just before I began the experiment, I saw a man near the stage. A man holding that crossbow. Beg your pardon? Professor! Did the man have any distinguishing feature? What did he look like? Taller than me, and thinner than me, with straight hair, straighter and whiter than mine. Let me see, one less lens than me too, a monocle, rather stylish black monocle. One thing in particular would help to positively identify the man. You see, I know him very well. After all, he's the engineer who built my invention. What? He built the machine? That's right. Mr. Osman introduced him to me a year ago. He's a man by the name of Enoch Debater. Enoch Debater? Does this name mean something? Members of the jury seem flustered. I don't name any scientist wishes to hear. That man's an abomination. Not a name any conjurer wishes to hear, either. On earth is he? Pray this isn't the first tale of this nature that I've heard in scientific circles in connection with that name. There's talk of another flamboyant experiments that turn out to be nothing but stage trickery in the end. Obviously, the rascal was after the government's research grant. When the magicians are in need of money, I have heard of them resorting to these underhand tactics. Some acquaintances of mine with experience of such things have mentioned Enoch Deber's name before. The man is both an engineer and a magician. Yes, we're dealing with unparalleled confident trickster here. That's Enoch Deber for you.
Oh, it's true then. My invention. My great machine. It was just a grand illusion?
Considering what we've just heard about Mr. Debeter's character, I'm sorry to say that sounds increasingly likely.
Even though no one else believed it, I wanted to. I wanted to believe the machine would function exactly as my hypothesis predicted.
That's why you were so opposed to it being investigated, I presume.
I knew that the machine was examined in detail. Its construction would give away my hypothesis. Obviously, I didn't want that to happen. But at the same time, I knew that it was found to be nothing more than a trick, than a work of deception. And everything I worked towards, all my research, all my dreams, my whole life would be over. I was terrified at the prospect.
Do you really have no idea then? Did you? About the true nature of the machine that was built? The true nature of Mr. Deber?
Never question anything. I didn't want to question it.
Entirely possible that Mr. Osmond and Mr. Deber were working together to use you as a means of fraudulently acquiring the research grant money.
When I announced my invention to the crowds that day, it was the finest moment of my career. I pulled all the levers and turned all the dials exactly the way Deber had described. When the smoke suddenly started bellowing out, I panicked. I didn't know what was happening. But I really don't know how the whole illusion was made to work. I don't know anything anymore.
Let me confirm one final point with you, Professor. Do you now consent to the prosecution submitting the necessary paperwork to release your invention from the protection afforded by the Special Disposition of Scientific Equipment Act?
Yes. Please go ahead. I am very sorry.
It would appear that we shall have to suspend proceedings for the remainder of the day now. Lord Van Zeeks, my lord, the court has newly been made aware of another party whose involvement in this matter is critical. Yes, Mr. Dreber. Gathered information about the man. If possible, I should like him served with a subpoena. With pleasure, my lord. Now, counsel for the defense. Yes, my lord. When we reconvene, I shall be looking for one thing, and one thing alone from you. Evidence. The defendant is innocent of the crime for which he presently stands accused. I understand. Good. In that case, this court is adjourned until tomorrow morning. 23rd of October, 1:36 p.m. Old Bailey, defendant's antechamber.
Mr. Naruto! Yes? I'm so sorry! I was wrong. You were right. I tricked you. You trusted me, and I tricked you. Did I miss? Oh, how did it ever come to this? I'm so sorry.
Did you really have no idea, Professor? About what Mr. Trevor was really up to? I mean, about what he was really constructing?
Naturally. That machine was an embodiment of my hypothesis, and with all my hopes and dreams. I had complete faith in it.
Alright. In that case, I won't say any more.
Now, sadly, the murder accusation against you still stands.
We must do as much investigation as we can before the trial resumes tomorrow.
Thank you for doing so much for me.
So sorry for arriving late this morning, Mr. Naruto. Arriving late? Didn't you receive my postcard? I wanted to let you know when I arrived. Postcard? What postcard? I hid it from you, Reno. It would be a surprise. Well, did it work?
I was surprised, all right. Especially when she threw me to the ground.
Oh dear, I'm so sorry. I was just so happy to see you again that it had sort of slipped out. Maybe we should stick to more traditional displays of emotion in the future? Dosie's train was late into London Victoria this morning, you see. We made the coachman really whip the horses hard so she didn't miss the whole trial. I was watching from the gallery for a while, but in the end, I'm afraid I couldn't contain myself. Well, I'm glad you didn't. Oh? Having you by my side in court gives me the strength I need to win. So, I'm glad to see you. But back in London. Oh, you're too kind, Naruto. I'm delighted to be here. I hope I can continue to be of service to you. Of course. So, what's brought you back? Did Professor Mikotoba not protest? Let's save all the conversational, for when we're back at home, shall we? You know, I made, one of my most special blends ever, for this special occasion. Oh, Iris, how wonderful. I can't wait. Susato-sen was back in London. Hard to describe how happy that made me feel at the time. But despite my elation, her tale was about to take yet another extraordinary turn. Another one? Oh my goodness. It keeps on going. Either way, next time, everybody. To be continued. Sayonara. Bye-bye.